You know that moment when someone asks you for something, and your answer comes out before you've even had time to think about it? Yeah, sure. Of course. No problem at all. And maybe, for a split second, there's a quiet hesitation underneath it. A small pause that no one else notices. But it's already too late. The answer is out there, and now you're committed. Later, you might sit with that feeling. The slight heaviness. The wondering. Why did I say yes again? And it's strange because it doesn't feel like a conscious decision. It feels automatic. Almost like your body answered before you did. Most people don't see this part. From the outside, it just looks like you're helpful. Easygoing. Someone who doesn't make things difficult. And those are the words that tend to get used. Nice, accommodating, selfless. But there's something underneath that often goes unnoticed. Something quieter, more complex. Because what looks like generosity on the surface can sometimes be a pattern your nervous system learned a long time ago. And this is where we can finally name it. This is about why you can't say no. Not in the dramatic sense, not because you don't understand the word, but because, in certain moments, it doesn't feel available to you in the way it seems to be for other people. And most explanations stop too early. They make it sound like a confidence issue, or a lack of boundaries, or something you just need to work on. But there's more going on here than people realize. When your brain is deciding how to respond in a social moment, it's not just thinking logically, it's also scanning for safety. Deep in the nervous system, there's a constant quiet question. Is this interaction safe or not? And safety doesn't always mean physical danger. It can mean emotional safety, relational safety, the risk of disapproval, rejection, tension. There's a body of research in neuroscience that looks at something called the threat response. Most people are familiar with fight or flight, but there's another response that often gets overlooked: fawn. Fawning is when the system moves toward appeasing, accommodating, smoothing things over. Not because you consciously want to, but because somewhere in your wiring, that response became associated with staying safe. So when someone asks something of you, your brain doesn't just evaluate the request, it also evaluates the emotional consequences of saying no. Will this create tension? Will they be disappointed? Will something feel off between us? And if your system has learned that those outcomes are risky, it will often choose the path that minimizes friction, which is usually, yes, not because you don't have preferences, not because you don't care about your own time or energy, but because, in that moment, maintaining connection feels more urgent than expressing a boundary, and this isn't random, it usually has roots. For a lot of people, this pattern starts forming in environments where harmony mattered more than honesty, where being agreeable made things easier, safer, more predictable. Maybe you learned, without anyone explicitly saying it, that saying no led to tension, or withdrawal, or subtle disappointment that you could feel but couldn't quite name. Maybe being easy was appreciated, rewarded even, while resistance, having needs, taking up space, felt like something that complicated things. Over time, your system adapts. It becomes efficient at reading people, at anticipating what will keep things smooth, at responding quickly in ways that preserve connection. And eventually, it stops feeling like a choice. It just feels like who you are. But it's important to say this clearly. This is not better or worse than any other way of being. Some people lean toward directness, others lean toward accommodation. These are different nervous system strategies shaped by different experiences. There isn't a correct personality hiding underneath that you're failing to access. There's just a pattern that made sense in the context it was formed, and here's where it gets more nuanced. Because the same sensitivity that makes it hard to say no is also what allows you to be deeply attuned to others. You notice shifts in tone, small changes in energy, the unspoken parts of conversations. You can sense when something feels off, even if no one says it out loud. That's not a weakness. That's a kind of intelligence. But like most things, it comes with a trade-off. The more tuned in you are to other people's needs and reactions, the easier it is for your own signals to get quieter in comparison. It's not that you don't have boundaries, it's that in certain moments they're harder to hear. And there's a paradox here that people don't often talk about. Sometimes the reason you struggle to say no isn't because you don't know what you want. It's because you do know, and you're aware of exactly what it might cost. You can already feel the awkward pause, the shift in tone, the possibility that something in the relationship might change, even slightly, and your system, trying to protect you, decides it's not worth it. So you say yes instead, not out of weakness, but out of calculation. A very fast, very quiet calculation that prioritizes connection over expression. And over time, that can create a subtle kind of distance, not between you and others, but between you and yourself. Because each time you override that initial hesitation, that small internal signal gets a little harder to access the next time. Not gone, just quieter. But none of this means something is wrong with you. It means your system learned something very well. It learned how to keep you connected, how to navigate people, how to maintain a sense of safety in relationships. And those are not small things. The goal isn't to become someone who suddenly says no to everything, or to swing to the opposite extreme. It's more subtle than that. It's about slowly noticing that moment, the one that happens right before the automatic yes. That fraction of a second where something in you pauses. You don't have to change it immediately. You don't have to act differently right away. Just noticing it is already a shift. Because the more you become aware of that moment, the less automatic it becomes. And over time, the word no doesn't have to feel like a rejection of someone else. It can start to feel like an acknowledgement of yourself. Not louder, not harsher, just included. If any of this feels familiar, there's probably more to uncover here. Not in a way that fixes you, but in a way that helps you understand the patterns you've been carrying. And once you start seeing them clearly, they tend to feel a little less permanent than they once did.